book then, to some extent, and I kind of picked this out because I was always infatuated with the movie, of course, and when I saw it was on the banned list, I said, why? And so it is a book about, it has twin plot lines, basically with two broad themes, tolerance and justice.
That's right.
And of course, the main characters are Atticus Finch, the lawyer, his two children, Jeb and Scout, and their friend and neighbor, Bill. So I picked out kind of in a Halloween theme, apart from the movie that I thought was very, it was just a nice part of the movie. I thought, for a Halloween theme, I'm going to pick out this particular part. And it talks about how they're going to try to investigate the neighbor, Boo Radley. Boo Radley, yeah. Here, just a moment on the middle. Sorry, I had it here. So anyway, Dill had just returned, and they decided what they're going to do in the afternoon. So Dill stretched, yawned, and said altogether too casually, "I know what, let's go for a walk." He sounded fishy to me. Nobody in Maycomb just went for a walk. Where to, Dill? Jeb said. Dill jerked his head in the southerly direction. Jeb said, "Okay." When I protested, he said sweetly, "You don't have to come along, Angel May. You don't have to go, remember." Jeb was not one to dwell on past defeats. It seemed the only message he got from Atticus was insight into the art of cross-examination. "Scout, we ain't going to do anything. We're just going to the street light and back." We strolled silently down the sidewalk, listening to the porch swing creaking in the weight of the neighborhood, listening to the soft night murmurs of grown people on our street. Occasionally, we heard Miss Stevenson Crawford laugh. "Well," said Dill. "Okay," said Jim. "Why don't you go on home, Scout?" "What are you going to do?" Dill and Jeb were simply going to peer in the window with a loose shutter to see if they could get a look at Boo Radley. And if I didn't want to go with them, I could go straight home and keep my flopping mouth shut. That was all. "But what the Sam Hill, holy hell, do you want to wait until do it at night?" Because nobody could see them at night, because Atticus would be so deep in a book, he wouldn't hear the kingdom coming, and if Boo Radley killed them, they'd miss school instead of vacation. And because it was easier to see inside of a dark house in the dark than it was in the daytime, that I understand. "Jeb, please." "Scout, I'm telling you for the last time, shut your trap or go home. I declare to God you're getting more like a girl every day." With that, I had no option but to join. We thought it was better to go under the high wire fence at the rear of the Radley lot. We stood less of a chance of being seen. The fence enclosed a large garden and a narrow wooden outhouse. Jeb held up the bottom wire and motioned Dill under it. I followed and held up the wire for Jeb. It was a tight squeeze for him. "Don't make a sound," he whispered. "Don't get caught in a row of collards. Whatever you do, they'll wake up the dead." With this in mind, I made perhaps 1 step per minute. I moved faster when I saw Jeb far ahead, beckoning in the moonlight. We came to the gate that divided the garden from the backyard. Jeb touched it, and the gate squeaked. "Spit on it," whispered Dill. "You've got us in a box, Jeb," I muttered. "We can't get out of here so easy." "Shh. Spit on it, Scout." We spat ourselves dry and Jeb opened the gate slowly, lifting it aside and resting it on the fence. We were in the backyard. The back of the Radley house was less inviting than the front. A ramshackle porch ran the width of the house. There were 2 doors and 2 dark windows between the doors. Instead of a column, a rough 2x4 supported one end of the roof. An old Franklin stove sat in the corner of the porch, and above it a hat-rack mirror caught the moon and shone eerily. "Ah," said Jeb softly, lifting his foot. "What's the matter?" "Chickens," he breathed. That we'd be obliged to dodge the unseen from all directions was confirmed when Dill ahead of us spelled in a whisper. We crept to the side of the house, around to the window with a hanging shutter. The sill was several inches taller than Jeb. "Give you a hand up," he muttered to Dill. "Wait, though." Jeb grabbed his left wrist and my right wrist. I grabbed his left wrist and Jeb's right wrist. We crouched, and Dill sat in our saddle. We raised him up, and he caught the windowsill. "Hurry," Jeb whispered. "You can't last much longer." Dill punched my shoulder, and we lowered him to the ground. "What did you see?" "Nothing. Curtains. Just a little teeny light way off in there somewhere." "Let's get out of here," breathed Jeb. "Let's go back. Let's go round and back again." "Shh," he warned me as I was about to protest. "Let's go to the back window." "Dill, no," said I. Dill stopped and let Jeb go ahead. When Jeb put his foot on the bottom step, the step squeaked. He stood still and tried his weight by degrees. The step was silent, and Jeb skipped 2 steps and put his foot on the porch, heaved himself up onto it, and teetered there for a long moment. He regained his balance and dropped to his knees. He crawled to the window, raised his head, and looked in. Then I saw a shadow. It was the shadow of a man with a hat on. At first I thought it was a tree, but there was no wind blowing, and tree trunks never walked. The back porch was bathed in moonlight, and the shadow, crisp as toast, moved across the porch towards Jeb. Dill saw it next. He put his hands to his face. Then, across Jeb, he saw it. He put his arms over his head and went rigid. The shadow stopped about a foot above Jeb. Its arm came out from inside, dropped, and was still. Then it turned and moved back across Jeb, walked along the porch and off the side of the house, returning as it had come. Jeb leaped off the porch and galloped towards us. He flung open the gate, danced Dill and me through, and then shooed us between the 2 rows of swishing collards. Halfway through the collards, I tripped. As I tripped, the roar of a shotgun shattered the neighborhood. Dill and Jeb died beside me. Jeb's breath came in sobs. "Fence by the schoolyard. Hurry, Scout." Jeb held the bottom wire. Dill and I rolled through, and were halfway to the shelter of the schoolyard's solitary oak when we sensed that Jeb was not with us. We ran back and found him struggling in the fence, kicking his pants off to get loose. He ran to the oak tree in his shorts. Safely behind it, we gave way to numbness, but Jeb's mind was racing. "We gotta go home. They'll miss us." We ran across the schoolyard, crawled under the fence to Deer's pasture behind our house, climbed our back fence, and were on the back steps where Jeb would let us pause to rest. Respiration normal, 3 of us strolled as casually as we could to the front yard. We looked across the street and saw a circle of neighbors at Radley's front gate. "We'd better go down there," said Jeb. "They think it's funny if we don't show up." Mr. Nathan Radley was standing inside the gate, a shotgun across his arm. Atticus was standing beside Miss Maudie and Miss Stephanie Crawford. Miss Rachel and Mr. Avery were nearby. None of them saw us come up. Excuse me. We eased in beside Miss Maudie, who looked around. "Where were you all? Didn't you hear the commotion?" "What happened?" said Jeb. Mr. Radley shot at a Negro in his collared patch. "Oh, did he hit him?" "No," said Miss Stephanie. "Shot in the air. Scared him pale, though. Says if anybody sees a white nigger around, that's the one. Says he's got another bargain. Got another barrel waiting for the next sound he hears in that patch, and the next time he won't aim high. Be it a dog, nigger, or Jeb Finch." "Ma'am," said Jeb. Atticus spoke. "Where are your pants, son?" "Pants, sir?" "Pants." It was no use. In his shorts before God and everybody. I sighed. Mr. Finch. In the glare of the street light, I could see Dill hatching one. His eyes widened. His fat cherub face grew rounder. "What is it, Dill?" I won 'em from him," he vaguely said. "Won them? How?" Dill's hand sought the back of his head. He brought it forward and across his forehead. "We were playing strip poker up yonder by the fish pool." Jeb and I relaxed. The neighbors seemed satisfied. They all stiffened. But what was strip poker? We had no chance to find out. Miss Rachel went off like the town fire siren. "Do Jesus, Dill Harris, gambling by the fish pool? I'll strip poker you, sir." Atticus saved Dill from immediate dismemberment. "Just a minute, Miss Rachel," he said. "I've never heard of doing anything like that before. Were you all playing cards?" Jeb fielded Dill's fly with his eyes shut. "No, sir, just with matches." I admired my brother. Matches were dangerous, but cards were fatal. "Jeb, Scout," said Atticus, "I don't ever want to hear of poker in any form again. Go buy Dill's and get your pants, Jeb. Settle it yourself."
Thank you, Lou.